What's going on, everybody? And today I'm going to talk about a little video that Doucette made, and it's about the topic of how much gains or how much muscle do you keep after steroids, after cycling steroids, whether it's a one steroid cycle or after cycling steroids for an extended period of time. And there is a mistake that he made in his video that I'm going to respond to in this video, in which he said exactly at 1830 and then on that you are going to lose all of it up to or down to your genetic limit. And this is basically incorrect. And the reason that this is incorrect is based on two things. Number one, on research and a study that I'm going to reference here, and I'm going to discuss what this study mentioned, and also based on my personal experience as well as the experience of a whole array of other people that have had experimentation with doing either a cycle after a long time of natural training. In my case, after more than 12 years of natural training, which I thought that I would never gain any more natural muscle again. So basically I was at the top, at the end of my natural genetic limit for gaining muscle. Then from that point, if you do a cycle of steroids and you gain muscle above your natural limit in the realm of the anabolic steroid, meaning you've reached your natural genetic limit, then you push with anabolics. Beyond that, are you able to keep some gains, long-term strength / muscle gains, or both after that cycle? Now, the reason I say that you can and you benefit, and the shape of your muscles, the density of your muscles, and even some aspects of the size of your muscles change after that exact situation that I've mentioned, is based on, number one, a scientific study that I'm going to reference here, and I'm going to leave the links to that study in the description. In a study that they did in Norway, based on another study that they did in another Scandinavian country, I think it was Sweden, mice were briefly exposed to steroids, which resulted in increased muscle mass and number of cell nuclei in the muscle fibers. 3 months after withdrawal of the drug, approximately 15% of the mouse's lifespan, their muscles grew by 30% over 6 days, following load exercise. The untreated mice grew insignificantly. So basically what they did in this study is that they briefly exposed a bunch of mice, two groups. One never did steroids, and another group, they exposed it briefly to steroids. And then they stopped. They got off the steroids. In our case, we would say we stopped, then we did PCT, and then we stopped, and we stabilized our natural testosterone level for a long time, for a year, 2 years, right? And then they exposed those two groups of mice to training, to load exercise. The mice that were exposed briefly to steroids, and then they stopped, and then did a exercise naturally, grew 30% more muscle than the mice that never were exposed to steroids in their life. What does that tell you? That someone who has briefly been exposed to steroids can sustain long life, hypertrophy, and even strength benefits to that exposure after they stop and then go back to lifting weights again, right? Even if you go down and you look at the study and you look at the image, microscopy images showing the cross section of muscle fibers between the mice that were untreated and then the mice that were treated with anabolic steroids, you can look at the muscle fibers and you can see that the muscle fibers of the mice that were exposed to steroids, they actually are bigger right? They stretched more. In the science of anabolics or muscular hypertrophy, we separate between two things: muscular hypertrophy and hyperplasia, which are two things. One is increasing the size of the muscle fibers. One is the splitting, of the cells into many numerous cells, and then those new ones that split can be then subjected to hypertrophy. This exact study basically proves that someone who has been briefly exposed to rats, right? Rats that were briefly exposed to steroids, and then they stopped, and a whole bunch of time passed. Then they basically did exercise, did muscular training, exercise load. They grew 30% more muscle. Now, in the case of humans, we would say someone did a cycle, a 12-week, whatever, 8-week cycle of whatever, grew muscles, let's say, put on 15, 20 pounds above their maximum genetic limit. Then they did PCT, and then they stopped. A year later, then they even stopped training. A year later, they got on muscular training again. They got back in the gym. They started lifting weights. That guy who was briefly exposed to steroids would gain, if we measure based on that study, 30% more muscle than the version of himself that was always natural and had never been exposed to steroids in its anabolics in its lifetime. This is basically what the study says. Now, going back to personal experience and going back to experiences of a bunch of other people, look at the bodies of some of the bodybuilders that actually sustained a good amount of training, and they are at an average dose of TRT, and some of them even PCT that got off TRT. But then, look at a lot of other people's personal experiences. Look at, and I'm going to reference here my personal experience. In my view, after a long time of natural training, then briefly being exposed, the amount of muscle, especially in the areas of shoulder, upper chest, some aspects of the arms, were enhanced way more than I had ever been when I was training a long life of natural training, and very close, if not at, the maximum genetic limit of muscular hypertrophy. So can you experience long life benefits from gear even after stopping, after PCTing, normalizing testosterone production, your endogenous testosterone production, not getting on a high dose of, not even getting on TRT, not even doing a high dose of test, just going to natural testosterone production after normalizing the endogenous production. I believe that the higher probability for this answer is yes. By how much? I think that this can range between different people. Some people are going to get off and they're not going to exercise again, and they're not going to eat, and they're going to reduce their caloric intake, and they're not going to exercise. Some people are going to continue to eat and exercise, and obviously so those people will maintain a lot more percentage of the muscle mass that they gained on an anabolic cycle than those who get off the anabolics and then never exercise and they reduce their caloric intake. Obviously, those people are going to lose a lot more muscle and a lot more weight after. So I think it depends a lot on the person that's doing it, from the aspects of not only genetics, but their activity level as far as hypertrophy training, caloric intake after they stop. My own experience coupled with this scientific study basically says that you do experience benefits in muscular size and even in some aspects of strength after briefly being exposed to anabolics, even if you stop for a long period of time. If somebody has any experience with this exact topic, please share it so we can all get educated on this topic. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.